Do you know, you've heard of David Huggins?
Yes.
What do you make of him? Have you ever met him?
No. Well, I don't like to talk. Well, you tell me what you make of David. You asked me a question about David Huggins.
I watched his documentary, Love and Saucers, and I found it absolutely fascinating. I don't know what to make. I know Jeffrey Kripal met him. He was in the documentary.
Yeah.
He seems like he truly, genuinely believes what he says about his story of this woman who looks like a half alien, half woman. She has long hair.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that she had looked anything like the 3-foot being with the big head, but she did say it had big eyes, but it was far more human, like a Nordic looking human woman with blonde hair, I believe.
Yes.
And she had sex with him, and then she came back, and then she showed him the children that she bore from him.
Yeah.
He met the children. He drew these beautiful paintings of this woman with big breasts.
Right, I know the story. Okay.
The story is fantastical, and it sounds like something that you could laugh at, right? Or you could just be like, oh, what a crazy cuckoo guy this is. Well, but it seems to be very similar to a lot of the things you're saying.
Well, the mind becomes, it gets a need to connect the dots. In other words, there may be less to the actual story than he's telling. But I will say this, I know David believes every word of it. And I also would think that the part of the encounter is true. And at least some children are true. And the reason I think that is I turned one of those women down when they tried to have sex with me.
So you never had any like physical intercourse as humans would
that's not
with one of
true.
these beings?
I did have.
Oh, you did?
I certainly did.
When was this?
It was must have been in 88, 89 maybe.
And how did this happen?
Okay, I'll tell you the whole story. I woke up in a state of full erection, lying on my back with a female whom we got to know quite well. She never sat down in the living room and chatted with her. She's in the house a lot. I can tell you more stories about her, too.
Is this the main female entity you normally see?
I don't know if it's the same one.
Okay.
I can't
look
tell.
Similar or no?
Yeah, it looks similar, only she was somewhat human. For one thing, she had sexual organs, and the little ones that you usually see don't have sexual organs.
Have anything
no,
like
they're
that.
not, because they're grown. They're not born. And at least that's what I would assume. Because if they don't have sexual organs, obviously they're not having sex and not having babies.
Right.
But they're there, therefore they must be grown. So anyway, this is what happened. I wake up and I'm engaged in sex already with this individual. It's well along. I look up and I cannot see the face. The face is blacked out. But the body is a female body.
Breasts?
With very small but existent breasts, thin arms, and legs that were human. Like it's a half human, half alien, half a gray human person. Okay. The room is filled with people, including one of them who I recognize. He's an intelligence officer whom I've known at that point for years. And I have, at that moment, the most extraordinary experience of sex I've ever had in my life, despite the situation. It was brain-bending and terribly upsetting to me because I was a married man and I'm very chaste. I'm not going to be comfortable fooling around. Recently
What was so good about it?
It was just incredibly intense, and it was like a Kundalini experience. It was so intense. It was just my whole body. I climaxed not with but with my entire body. It was brain bending. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And I told Annie about it immediately because I had to. But the truth was, I came awfully close with her a number of times because one thing about my wife is she knew what she was doing in bed.
Right.
Anyway, the next morning I wake up, I'm back in my bed. I've had sex, and Annie hasn't. It's quite clear, the way I look and feel and smell. And I tell her the whole story immediately, of course, because, there's no way. I mean, if I'm going to fool around, I sure as hell, I'm not going to fool around with anyone, because I really love my wife.
Right.
And, she's the only woman aside from her that I've ever even had sex with.
This is in the cabin, by the way?
In the cabin, yeah.
Okay.
In the old cabin. In
New York.
In New York, yeah. So I think to myself about the guy.
The CIA guy.
No, he was an intelligence officer. He's not in the CIA. He's in another agency. And but as I say, I've known him a long time. For other reasons, nothing to do with this. And I thought, what in the hell did I remember that or not? And I didn't know how to talk to him about it, because, I couldn't very well say to someone who knew essentially nothing about this, hey, were you watching me have sex with an alien in my guest room?
He did know about the visitors, though, right?
He may have.
But why would you be involved with intelligence if it wasn't about this?
As a writer in the old days, you were called upon they wanted you to go places where a writer could be going without suspicion during the Cold War and report back on what you saw. And
they were using you as a spy?
Not a spy exactly, but sort
an agent?
No, no. I guess...
you were recruited?
I was recruited, yeah. I was recruited when I was at school in England, and I did a few things. I mean, not much. I did a few things when I was in...
For the MI6?
No, for the CIA in England. One thing, and it was absolutely ridiculous, and it didn't work. But
how old?
Oh, I would have been 21, 22. And then later in my 20s, I did a couple of other things that I don't want to talk about, not because I'm not even sure they're secret, but I just don't know. And, it was nothing big. I mean, I just went out and went to a country and looked around and took a few pictures.
Wow.
So
this is an amazing detail you left out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not an amazing detail. It's just how many writers did it in those days? Many.
Really?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you got a free trip and all this stuff. And,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I wasn't asked to go on secret any places that were dangerous or anything. They just wanted pictures of, in this case, of someone walking out of a restaurant, because that was it. And I guess they didn't want one of their officers to be seen doing it, because in the place I was in, every CIA officer was well known to the local authorities.
Okay, so
it was just a tourist taking chance pictures. Is what.
So he wasn't connected to these visitors at all.
Not at all. This had nothing to do with them.
You had
and it was before that, and it was basically a young guy getting a free trip. And that's all it was.
Okay. So you woke up, you had this experience of having amazing intercourse with this female hybrid alien.
And this guy is there.
And this guy's in the background watching.
Right. Now, as life unfolds, it turns out he's heavily involved in this visitor stuff. And I think to myself, should I ask him about it? So I ask him. I've asked him a few times, have you ever been to my cabin? He always says no. And I didn't know what to make of that, because, in fact, people can do things, and I think my father might have been such a person for the visitors, that they don't remember. And I probably have that in my life, too. I think everyone I think they control the stream of your memory when it comes to them.
Okay.
They don't probably care about the rest of it. They control that.